So let me talk a little bit more about iron because looks like it's so important for energy production. Now, um, these three things are very connected. The number of red blood cells in your bloodstream, the amount of iron that you take from food, and also um, the energy that you produce. So they're positively connected. So if you're going to have low iron, then you're going to have less blood cells, red blood cells in your bloodstream, and also less energy. So let me talk a little bit about how iron is absorbed, how red blood cells are produced, and other things connected to that. So iron comes from food. It's absorbed at the duodenum level in the lumen, which is a layer of cells at the duodenum level. So it's absorbed to that layer and then it gets to the bloodstream. Because iron is such an oxidative element, it causes damage to the tissues around, and that's why it needs to be encapsulated. It is encapsulated in the so-called transferrin molecules, and it's transported through the bloodstream to the bone marrow, where are the stem cells. Probably you know that stem cells are the precursors of different types of cells in the body, including red blood cells. So from stem cells will be made red blood cells, but for that you'll need iron, and of course you'll need B12 and folate for that as well. So this happens at the bone marrow. Now this is how you're going to get more red blood cells in the bloodstream. The spleen functions as a recycling element here. In this case, the red blood cells, they have only 120 days to live. When they get older, then the spleen takes them, it breaks them down, and the iron, it's going to be recycled. It's going to get back to the bone marrow, and there it's going to be used for the production of new red blood cells. The liver here is going to act as a storage unit. So what happens when you have more iron that is needed? Then it's going to be stored here in this lumen cells, and these cells will be released and they will go to the through the GI tract. Okay, so red blood cells contain hemoglobin, and this hemoglobin is essential because that's responsible for transporting oxygen, and the red blood cells are transporting oxygen and nutrients to the organs of your body and the tissues and so on. That's why they're so important in this case. Now, how much iron do you need per day? According to USDA, 8 milligrams of iron per day would be proper for men as an intake, and 18 milligrams of iron per day in case of women, because they're losing blood through menstruation. They need more iron, and also 27 milligrams per day for pregnant women. The reality is different though, because what we're getting in is 1 or 2 milligrams per day, and that's because of several causes. And one of the major causes is poor iron absorption, or low intake of iron. But also depends very much on the iron quality. So let's look into the poor absorption a little bit. Now, Candida, it's known to block iron absorption right there. Poor absorption, it's going to be very much connected to C vitamin levels in your diet. So as I told you before, calcium, increased calcium is going to cause poor iron absorption. That's why drink your cup of milk a little bit later or before taking iron rich food. Low C vitamin, low acid in the stomach. Imagine that if you have low acid in your stomach, then the food, it's not broken down properly, so this means less amount of iron it's absorbed. Grain, it's also known to block iron absorption. Also oxalates. Now several vegetables like parsley, for example, like spinach, like herbs like yellow duck or lamb's quarters, these are very rich in oxalates. I would say less spinach and parsley, but still that's why oxalates are responsible for making kidney stones, especially in combination with C vitamin. But I'm not talking about the C vitamin that comes from food, more likely about the C vitamin which is in the pills, you know, the C vitamin pills that you can take, because that already turns into oxalates. And of course in the oxalate production there's different other ingredients that can trigger those. So leaky gut, it's another cause why iron could be poorly absorbed. Leaky gut is just holes in the duodenum. I mean, the pores should be smaller, while in reality they are larger. This means that in that case you have unbroken down molecules that are passing through the duodenum and they're getting in the bloodstream. So mostly your body doesn't know what to do with those. They should pass through very small pores and they should be transported and degraded into essential parts that are assimilated easily by the body. Okay, so in that case, imagine that part of the food that you ingest gets directly in your bloodstream and it's not broken down properly. Also, another thing that I would connect to low acid intake is the amount of water that you drink while you're eating or right after you're eating, because that's going to dilute your acid intake, acid production. Okay, so this was the poor absorption and some of the causes why there could be poor absorption for iron. Now let me focus a little bit on low iron intake. That depends very much on what you eat. Do you eat iron rich foods or not? Or low iron quality. Now there are two types of iron. It's Hem iron and it's non-Hem iron. Non-Hem iron comes from vegetables and Hem iron comes from meats and animal originating food. But we'll discuss a little bit that in the next video, so you'll see more exactly what I mean by that. blood loss. You might have blood loss which is sudden. That depends very much on how much blood you would lose. Let's say that if you're prompt for ulcers, let's say, in that case you can lose blood. It could be chronic blood loss from time to time, or it could be just straight blood loss, and depends very much on the amount. Menstruation in case of women, so they're losing iron through that. Parasites. Now parasites are a real concern because they're thriving on blood. They're sucking blood, and they're quite common, and it's good to check yourself from time to time for parasites. And health issues. Well, I'm talking here about the health issues of the GI tract. In that case, there are some problems that are actually you're losing iron because of that. Excuse me. So could be gastritis, could be celiac disease, could be hypersplenism, could be colon cancer or different kinds of cancer, fibrosis, could be some of the most encountered GI tract issues, and of course could be also genetic reasons. Let's say that maybe here at this level you can absorb iron well just because that's the way nature came with, in your case. So what happens if you have low iron intake? All of these can lead to anemia. Anemia, it's also expressed through some symptoms like chronic fatigue, palpitations, cognitive dysfunction, low activity, paleness, weakness, depression, rapid heart rate, hair loss, brittle nails, and some other symptoms. And all of these actually will lower your life quality, of course. Cognitive dysfunction. That's very interesting. See, right here you can notice that oxygen plays a major role in this case. So this is pretty much about iron, and in the next video we'll talk a little bit more about it.